This video is going to show you how to fill out the addendum for addendum for sale of other property by buyer. So basically, if you're making an offer on one property, but yet your buyers still have to sell their old property, you're going to want to use this form, and this is going to protect them. So if they can't sell their other property, then they can get out of back out of the contract. So I'm going to use the loop that I was using on the how to write a 1-to-4 family contract. And what we're going to do is we're going to add this addendum. So I'm going to add document and from templates. And I'm working with a buyer. So I believe it's under this folder right here, buyer purchasing. And I'm going to put for sale, just type that in as a keyword. It's not popping up, so it's probably under version now instead. Version now has all the documents, so if you can't find it in one of these 4 folders here, then it's going to be in version now. So let's do for sale. There it is right there. Addendum for sale of other property by buyer. So this form is actually very easy to fill out. When you click on it, I'm going to go ahead and autofill. It's asking me to go ahead and autofill for my buyers. And then, of course, it's got that property address in there. So I'm going to hit autofill. And here it says addendum for sale of other property by buyer, the contract concerning the property at 2015 CS Trail Lane, Spring, Texas 77386. So that's the property that they're going to buy. And it says the contract is contingent upon buyer's receipt of the proceeds from the sale of buyer's other property at, and this would be their current address where they're living at now. So let's just put 1212. Okay, so let's pretend that that is our current address. And then this is when it needs to close. So it says that this property will sell on or before a specific date. So if they are under contract right now on this property, you would want to put whatever the closing date is on that when they're expecting to close. If they're not actually on contract or under contract, you want to make sure that you put a date, fairly far out, because you just don't know when this this is actually going to close. However, this date cannot go past your closing date on this property. It just wouldn't make sense. So you could actually make them the same day. So on this CS Trail Lane, if I said, okay, my closing date is going to be let's say June the 9th, that's the date I want to put here. Now, like I said, if this is under contract and you're closing in May, then put that May date. And then down here it says, if seller accepts a written offer to sell the property, seller shall notify buyer of such acceptance, and the seller requires the buyer to waive the contingency. Buyer must waive the contingency on or before, I'm going to put the second day, after seller's notice to buyer. Otherwise, the contract will terminate automatically and the earnest money will be refunded to the buyer. So what that's saying is, if that seller ends up getting a backup contract on the property on CS Trail Lane, they're going to come to your buyers and say, okay, we've got another offer on this property. Do you want to drop your contingency and move forward with the contract? Or do you want to terminate the contract? And this is saying that they have 2 days to decide and get back to those sellers. If you're representing the buyer, you want to make sure you give them enough time. If it was me as a listing agent, I'd probably only allow them to have 1 day, just so I don't lose the potential of their offer. So let's say the buyer says, we're going to drop this contingency. We want to move forward with the contract. So if they do that, then they're going to have to deposit additional earnest money with the escrow agent as earnest money. It will be refunded at closing as long as they close. So I'm going to say additional $500. Again, this is negotiable. If I'm representing the buyer, I don't want to put down a lot of extra money, but at the same time, you need to put down enough that it's going to show that you're truly invested in buying this property. And that's it. And then you just have your buyer sign and send it over to the listing agent and have their client sign it, along with the offer, the 1-to-4 family and the third party and any other addendums that go with it. If you have any questions, let me know.